Howdy, and thank you for attending the Thesis and Dissertation Services Virtual Document Preparation Conference. The first half of today's presentation will look at the administrative aspects of submitting your manuscript, including approvals, deadlines, and what it means to clear for graduation. The second half will focus more on the document formatting itself, including visual examples of a properly formatted document and some resources to help you along your way. In addition to graduate school and thesis and dissertation service requirements, your specific programs have their own requirements. If you are unaware of those or need to be reminded, that information is accessible in the graduate catalog. Dates and deadlines vary semester to semester, but maintain a consistent pattern within the broader academic cycle. You can access deadlines for specific semesters via the Dates and Deadlines page on the grad.tamu.edu website. We start every semester by accepting new submissions, and semesters overlap. For example, the first day to submit for the spring 2024 semester is November 21, towards the end of the fall 2023 semester. If a student meets the necessary requirements and completes the review process prior to this day, the early clearance deadline, they can avoid registering for that semester. Students who don't meet the early clearance deadline will be required to register for a minimum of 1 credit hour. For this reason, the early clearance deadline coincides with the last day to add drop for that semester. The submission deadline is the last possible day to upload your document to Vireo and still be eligible to graduate in a given semester. This deadline applies to your initial document submission. We will still accept formatting corrections after the submission deadline has passed. We close Vireo promptly at 5 p.m. on submission deadline day. In addition to the online manuscript submission, your approval form will need to have arrived in our review queue in ARCS by this time. The approval form must be approved by all your committee members and your department by 5 p.m. on this day. At the end of each semester, degree audits are conducted to determine which degree candidates have met graduation requirements and which have not. If you have not cleared for graduation by the graduation deadline, you can still participate in your commencement ceremony as long as you have applied for graduation and are otherwise eligible to graduate. Post-commencements, you will have 2 to 3 more weeks to finish any outstanding requirements and still be considered a graduate of that particular semester. This is the ultimate clearance deadline. For example, the fall 2023 semester final clearance deadline is January 19, 2024. In addition to formatting edits, these are the requirements to clear for graduation. It's what we call the clearance checklist. You must apply for graduation in the semester you intend to graduate by the deadlines listed on our website. If you do not clear early, you'll need to register for the semester. I'll cover copyright permissions later in the presentation. Defense results, doctoral surveys, copyright and availability form, and the approval form are now completed through ARCS, Requirements Completion System. Effective September 2023, graduate milestone approvals will be exclusively completed within ARCS. Students can move to the next milestone once the previous one has been fulfilled. Once a student passes their final examination, they will be eligible to submit the forms and requirements for clearing thesis and dissertation services. Instructions for each step will populate at this milestone in their ARCS feature through the Howdy portal. Doctoral students will be asked to complete 2 surveys and upload confirmation of completion of these surveys before they were able to submit the copyright and availability form. The copyright and availability form is how a student determines the post-graduation embargo on their manuscript. Students had the option to withhold some or all of their research from public view for 2 years after they graduate. You can initiate the form in ARCS and your committee chair approves. The copyright and availability form has 4 sections: a copyright agreement, an acknowledgement of content statement, the student availability and copyright agreement, and finally, the availability options that you see on this slide. You will read and signify your acceptance of the first 3 sections before you choose your embargo type. If you choose an immediate release, no restriction will be placed on the manuscript, and usually within 6 months of your graduation date, the manuscript itself will be published on the library website in its entirety. A document-only hold, our most popular option, means that for 2 years the full text of your document will be held from public view. The only information about your work available during this time would be the metadata associated with it. Your name as author, the title, abstract, subject, and keywords. With a document-only hold, the record of your work will exist, but the manuscript itself will be withheld for the 2-year period. Finally, a full record hold means a complete embargo reserved for patent and proprietary considerations. It'll be like this document doesn't exist at all as far as the public is concerned. Document-only or full record holds require a justification in the space provided before you can submit it. You can extend or shorten your hold period after graduation by contacting us at thesis@tamu.edu. I hasten to add that the copyright and availability form is not the same thing as copyright permissions. They are similarly named, but they are 2 very distinct requirements. I will discuss copyright permissions further later in the presentation. The student will be able to initiate their thesis and dissertation approval form in ARCS once the copyright and availability form has been approved by their committee chair. The thesis dissertation approval form must arrive to us by 5:00 p.m. on deadline day, along with the PDF of your manuscript if you intend to graduate that semester. This requirement will show up as unfulfilled in your ARCS record until you clear for graduation. Vireo is our online submission system for dissertations, theses, and records of study. The process of submission may take from 15 to 30 minutes. You will be asked to fill out a variety of fields with your contact information, committee member information, document title, and semester of intended graduation. Vireo is where your document will live for the duration of the review process. You will communicate with your reviewer and receive feedback through this platform. One of the required fields when uploading your manuscript to Vireo is an ORCID number, sort of an academic social security number that will uniquely identify you with your work throughout your academic career. If you don't have an ORCID ID yet, the process to acquire one is simple. Go to orcid.org. I think the whole process takes maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Once your forms and approvals are confirmed in ARCS and you submit a PDF of your manuscript through Vireo, you will be assigned a reviewer. Their name and contact information will be available to you in Vireo and in the feedback reviews that you receive from the reviewer. Your reviewer will review the document, generate a feedback report, upload that report to Vireo, and notify you and your committee chair via email. After you receive your corrections report, review the requirements and corrections, make the requested changes, and upload a corrected version of your manuscript back to Vireo. Every student will receive at least 1 round of corrections. If a second round is required, it is usually more of a cleanup process, fixing anything that shifted or wasn't addressed during the first round. Typically, if a document requires more than 2 rounds of corrections, it is because not all of the recommended changes in the previous rounds were implemented. A question we're frequently asked is how long a student can expect to wait for a first round of corrections. If you submit your document early in the semester when our caseload is light, you can typically expect to receive corrections anytime between 5 and 10 business days. If you submit closer to or on the submission deadline, you're typically going to be waiting 4 to 5 weeks. We receive 400 to 500 documents a semester. At least 50% of those come in the week of deadline day, and about 1/3 of them come in the last 2 days before the deadline. We review submissions in the order we receive them, no exceptions. Submitting earlier than deadline week or deadline day will reduce your wait time significantly. Every first round review will receive the following 4 comments as standard reminders, whether they apply to you or not. You'll need to check to make sure the captions and page numbers are accurate on your lists of figures and tables. For the use of figures and tables and copyright permissions, If you indicate when prompted while submitting to Vireo that you have not previously published any manuscript content, we'll take you at your word. If you indicate that you have previously published content, you'll need to identify what has been previously published. Even as the author, you'll need consent from the publisher to reuse any previously published materials. Thesis and Dissertation Services cannot tell you definitively whether copyright permissions are needed in your situation, but we can help with resources towards that end. Finally, with your references, please confirm the accuracy of information and that all references are retrievable for future researchers. Unless the previously published material in your manuscript falls under Creative Commons, Fair Use, or Public Domain, you'll need to acquire permission to reuse it. Many agreements between students and publishers allow reuse for the purpose of a thesis, dissertation, or record of study. If this is the case, you'll just need to properly cite the source in your material and provide the documentation that says it is okay to reuse it. Okay, let's revisit the clearance checklist that I had up on the screen earlier. At this point, if you've submitted to Vireo and we received your approval form, the VIS results, doctoral surveys, copyright and availability form, and approval form have been taken care of. I've just discussed copyright permissions, so you know what pertains to that as well. Otherwise, you'll have to make sure that you apply to graduate. This is how you indicate to the university that you're going to end your academic pursuit here. This application is through the Howdy portal. You'll also need to register for the semester. If you don't meet the early clearance deadline, then you are required to register for a minimum of 1 credit hour in order to be able to graduate in that semester. At this point, we're going to transition from the administrative aspect of the process to the formatting of the document itself. On our website, thesis.tamu.edu, you'll find our thesis and dissertation guidelines, as well as templates pre-designed to comply with our formatting requirements. The guidelines themselves are an 11-page document complete with formatting guidelines, overview of the submission process, and formatted samples of key pages. This is a good place to start. Templates give you a framework so you don't have to start from scratch. The basic Microsoft Word template is a good choice if you're not comfortable or familiar with all the customization or behind-the-scenes aspects of Microsoft Word. If you are more familiar and comfortable with those, the recommended template will allow you a little more freedom and control over what you want to change. We suggest you gauge your own familiarity with Microsoft Word and choose the template that you think fits best. We have a partnership with Overleaf that provides some technical support for the LaTeX template, which is popular among STEM students because of its technical coding component. If you go to the Overleaf TAMU site and register with your Texas A&M email address, you can access an Overleaf professional account for free. It's also built to be a collaboration tool, so you're not having to email a document back and forth with your professor. They can log in and see what you're doing. One note, while LaTeX produces beautifully formatted documents, we only recommend it for students already comfortable with LaTeX itself. A typical manuscript will follow this layout. Appendices are optional, you don't have to include them. You have two choices with regards to your reference section. You can have a distinct reference section for each chapter, or you can include a master reference list at the end of the main text before any appendices. Journal article style documents are designed for incorporating previously published material into your manuscript. But the manuscript should be a coherent standalone document, so it should include an introduction and conclusion and adhere to our other formatting requirements. The number of included articles is completely up to you and your committee chair. The templates default to a 12-point Times New Roman font. You are free to choose another font that is an accepted scholarly professional style. The main text must be double-spaced with 1-inch minimum margins and page numbers at the bottom center. The title page should not have a page number. The first preliminary page of the document, the abstract, should be numbered with lowercase Roman numeral 2. You will maintain Roman numeral lowercase page numbering throughout the preliminary pages. On the first page of Chapter 1, Page numbering starts over with Arabic numeral 1. You'll continue with Arabic numerals throughout the rest of the document, including appendices. The title of the document and all other major headings throughout the document should be in all capital letters, center justified, and double-spaced if it goes to more than one line. The title goes at the top of the title page in all capital letters, center justified, and double-spaced. Below that, you indicate the type of document. For master's students, a thesis. For PhD students, a dissertation. If you are any other professional doctoral degree, like a Doctor of Education, your document will be called a record of study. That will be followed by your name, which should match what is on record with the registrar's office. The submission statement in the middle is single-spaced with Texas A&M University on its own line. The submission statement and the committee member section are the only title page elements that are single-spaced. Beneath the submission statement, put the type of degree that you are earning: Master of Arts, Master of Science, Doctor of Philosophy, etc. Next, you'll list your committee members and department head. In addition to being single-spaced, this section is the only element of the title page that is left justified. As you see in the example, do not put Doctor in front of or PhD behind any of the names. No honorifics in the committee chair section. Below this section, indicate the year and month that you're graduating: May, August, or December. Beneath that, write the major subject in which you're earning your degree, and lastly, the copyright statement with your name, as you will retain the copyright of your document. While the version of your name higher up on the page should match official university records, the copyright statement is an opportunity to put your preferred name. These last three elements at the bottom, the date, the major subject, and the copyright statement, should be separated by 2 double spaces between each. We highly prefer abstracts that are single pages. Our firm limit for abstracts is about 1.5 pages, with none that go over 2 pages accepted. Contributors and funding sources is a required page with 2 distinct sections represented by the contributors and funding sources subheadings. Contributors should be limited to individuals who had some participation in the completion of your degree: committee members, lab partners, co-authors, and anyone else who influenced or participated in the completion of your manuscript and your degree. The second section, funding sources, is where you will list grants, scholarships, fellowships, assistantships, and any other financial source of support that helps you complete your degree. In the event that you paid for your degree entirely out of pocket and did not have any funding assistance, you still need to include this section with a brief sentence that says, "No outside funding was provided." Nomenclature is an optional page for abbreviations and other special terminology specific to your field. It can be as many pages as needed and should be listed either before the table of contents, as the final preliminary page, or in the appendices. The table of contents is a mandatory preliminary page. If you're using a template, there are instructions provided to generate it automatically so that you don't have to start from scratch. All major headings in the table of contents should appear in all capital letters. Please leave a double space between major headings and single spaces between subheadings. Only the first level of subheadings is required to appear in the table of contents. Leader dots should be generated by the template. There should be no bolded text in the table of contents, and also no italicized words unless you are using terms that are standardly italicized, like proper scientific names. Page numbers listed should match what's in the main text. Include page above the page number column and ensure that no text extends into it. Vertical spacing should remain consistent throughout the table of contents. The sample page illustrated here appears on page 9 of our Thesis and Dissertation Guidelines. The list of figures and list of tables are 2 distinct lists that are usually placed after the table of contents in the preliminary pages and should adhere to the same formatting guidelines as the table of contents itself. List of figures and tables should be double-spaced between each element and single-spaced within the elements themselves. No bold text, leader dots between the captions and page number column, and ensure that page numbers are accurate. Text should not extend into the page number column. You can include the entire caption or title in your list, but you are only obligated to include everything in the caption up to the first punctuation mark. Lastly, you can either number figures and tables sequentially throughout the entire document or break these up between each section. Generally, there are two ways you can format main text subheadings, numbered or unnumbered. Numbered subheadings are generally left aligned and do not need to be uniquely formatted at each level because the numbering takes care of identifying the subheading level itself. Unnumbered subheadings do need to be uniquely identified at each level for readability. We have included an example of unnumbered subheading formatting on this slide, but it's only an example. You can determine your own distinct formatting for each level as long as each level is distinctly formatted such that we can tell which format denotes which respective subheading level. Once you establish a format for subheadings, make sure you stick to it and don't skip any levels. You cannot have a second level subheading without a first level subheading, for example. So, if in your first chapter you establish centered bold as a first level subheading formatting style and left align bold as a second level subheading, you cannot have a left align bold subheading as the first one in that chapter. You should maintain a consistent style throughout your manuscript among the various chapters. There should be at least one line of text beneath the last subheading on a page. A subheading cannot be the last element on a page. You should check your document after converting from Word to PDF to make sure the conversion process didn't leave a subheading as the last line on any pages. We will not go through your manuscript with a ruler to ensure 3 single spaces between a table or figure and the next subsequent line of text. But your reader should be able to easily distinguish between a figure caption or table title and the next or preceding line of text. Some students, instead of trying to squeeze figures in between paragraphs of text, place figures on pages all by themselves. This makes it easier to format, and you can make that image and any text within bigger and easier to see and understand. All tables and figures must fit within the margins you've established elsewhere in your manuscript. For tables that extend beyond one page, re-establish the table title with continued added onto it and re-establish column and row headings. This will help your readers identify the data you're representing without having to flip back and forth between pages. References can be either placed at the end of each chapter or section, or placed at the end of the document. We don't enforce any specific formatting requirements for references. We recommend adhering to a common citation style for your academic discipline. We will check to see that your references fit within your established margins and are either ordered alphabetically by the last name of the primary author or sequentially in order of appearance in your manuscript. Like the table of contents, we also check that references are double-spaced between each entry and single-spaced within the entries themselves. You can also double-space the whole reference section. If you choose to include appendices, please maintain consistency in your margins, major headings, and page numbering. Otherwise, you can determine the structure or contents of your appendix as you see fit. Before we close, please be aware of some other community and writing resources available outside of Thesis and Dissertation Services. The University Writing Center holds a dissertation writing retreat the first week before each semester begins. Thesis and Dissertation Services staff usually attend to answer questions about manuscript formatting. The Writing Center is a good resource because whereas we are primarily concerned with formatting, they can help with more content-related editing and revising changes. Doctoral.net is a resource provided by their professional development team in the graduate school. It's a collaborative community that you can join to network with other doctoral students and share your experiences. We encourage you to take advantage of these opportunities. Our office is located in 208 Nagel Hall, between the Psychology and Academic buildings off Academic Plaza. If you want to come by and talk to us, emailing our direct email address, thesis@tamu.edu, to make an appointment is the best way to assure that someone will be available when you stop by. Otherwise, we can correspond by email or set up a Zoom appointment at your convenience. Thank you for checking out our virtual document preparation conference. In adherence with our own copyright standards, all photos seen today in this presentation were reused with permission of the Texas A&M Photo Repository. Congratulations on nearing the end of your graduate journey, and good luck in your future endeavors.